No more Shama.
What is up, ladies and gents? It's your boy Jermaine Event, main on MMA, and today we are checking out this video from Mixed Martial Academy, and it's titled "Why Ilia Topuria is." You guys can read the title there. Try to keep it clean, at least for the first minute or so here, but yeah, I was at work yesterday, and I was like, let me just check this video out because it's a pretty long video. It's about 45 minutes, and I usually don't try to do videos that long, but I started to watch it yesterday, and I got about 5 minutes in, and I was like, dude, this is really interesting, real nice Ilia Topuria deep dive. All right, so I was like, I would be doing myself a disservice not to review this video here on this channel. So it's a bit of a long one, but it is a deep dive on Ilia Topuria that I think is rather interesting. So let's check out this video from Mixed Martial Academy on Ilia Topuria.
Imagine, if you will, having everything. Your life's purpose achieved on one of the grandest stages the universe can provide. And then imagine you chuck it all away.
So Topuria will be moving up to 155 pounds and will be vacating the featherweight title.
If he didn't do it because of money, and he didn't do it because of doubt, then why did he turn his back on all of this?
That's why I say he's the new high watermark. There's people that are thinking maybe he's the best pound for pound fighter alive.
Topuria's legacy now balances on the razor's edge, and to understand why he lit his championship reign aflame, we must go back to where his greatness began. Ilia, since his very first fight, had always been surrounded by eminence. He stands shoulder to shoulder before his MMA debut with another great, another legend.
What about this Arnold Schwarzenegger tournament? Arnold fighter? What was that all about?
Ilia looks nervous, but he must focus now. He makes his walk for the first time as a professional
baby
to the
Ilia.
cage. His road to getting here was paved in sporting excellence. He had been a national champion in Greco-Roman wrestling, and shortly after moving to Spain from his home country of Georgia, had taken up jiu-jitsu and MMA. Now at the age of 17, he makes his walk to prove his worth in the blood game.
I always say, like, Arnold is watching the MMA because of me.
Wow.
I had a really great performance. I did a suplex. And
with the first taste of victory, Ilia knew that a life of violence is what he was destined for. He would continue his dominant rise in the sport.
What is it, the braids?
After 3 years in the sport, not only had Ilia remained undefeated, but he had also ducked and dived around different weight classes. After escaping the regional scene in Spain, he moved down to bantamweight, winning his first fight in the weight class, which then gave him the opportunity to fight for top British promotion Cage Warriors bantamweight title. But unfortunately, he would miss weight and then be ineligible to claim the strap, even in victory, of which he handily achieved. Ilia had started his journey alongside his brother, Alex, who had gone 2-1, and seeing Ilia's prowess, decided to stop his own career in order to become the greatest training partner he could for his brother. Ilia's first few fights only served to strengthen his confidence. He knew he was destined for so much more.
¿Te piensas el mejor de España ahora mismo, libra por libra?
Por supuesto que soy, pienso mejor.
¿De Europa?
Aunque dentro de mí yo pienso, ahora mismo no lo he demostrado, como por ejemplo en España yo pienso que lo he demostrado.
creo que voy a estar al final de 2018 en la UFC. Ahora, que no vaya a estar, será el año que viene.
pero es lo que yo realmente pienso. Todo para estar en la UFC. Tengo las ganas, tengo la edad, podría estar peleando ahora mismo en la UFC.
Y lo demostraré. Yo no solo pienso que soy el mejor de Europa, pienso que soy el mejor del mundo. Solo necesito un poco más de tiempo para demostrarlo.
This year would also see Ilia become the first Georgian black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And he did.
Ilia, at such a young age, was already a pioneer, and the future looked extremely bright. His success on such a great platform in Cage Warriors would see him signed to Middle Eastern standout organization Brave FC, a fantastic company which serves as a crucible for future UFC.
Yeah, this is about as far as I got when I saw this at work yesterday, maybe a little further. And I was like, dude, this is a crazy deep dive. Like, this is very interesting.
Ilia would not disappoint. 2 victories, 2 devastating finishes. Ilia had outgrown the regional MMA organizations. There was now no longer any doubt in his mind that he deserved to be in the UFC.
Quedaban 2 peleas más en el contrato, pero dije, mira, si yo consigo salirme del contrato, sé que la UFC me va a firmar.
Ilia's management company would get him out of his contract with Brave and sign immediately with UFC. He was expected to fight within the first couple of months of the contract, but almost within days of the ink drying on the contract, the matchmakers would call him with a short notice opportunity.
Me llaman y me dicen que si el mismo día de que tenía el vuelo para ir a Estados Unidos quería pelear en la UFC, pero en Abu Dhabi, en 8 días. Las oportunidades no te vienen todos los días y menos así, ¿sabes? Esto es mi sueño y me da igual que tenga 8 días, yo voy a aprovechar mi oportunidad. Y ahí empezó toda la historia.
A bout between Yusuf Zalal and Zong Woo Choi was expected to take place on October the 11th at Fight Night Moraes vs Sandhagen, but Woo Choi was pulled from the card, leaving a spot empty on 8 days' notice. This was what was offered to Ilia. At the time, Zalal was riding a 3-fight win streak in the UFC and was a well-respected prospect on the regional scene, and then had gone on to prove his worth in the premier organization. There was no doubt that this was an extremely difficult fight to take on such short notice for Ilia, but he just saw it as an opportunity to make a statement for his debut.
The totals are all the same, 29-28 for your winner by unanimous decision. He is still undefeated, Ilia Topuria.
With that win, Ilia Topuria did more than just announce himself in the UFC. He had made it clear that he was a problem. Taking a fight on 8 days' notice is one thing, but going on to dominate is another thing entirely. For all of Zalal's skills, the prospect was just simply not ready for the ferocity that Topuria brought inside of the cage. What people didn't know was that just a week before being offered the fight,
Is that Mario
had contracted
Batista?
the virus, and still, despite this, took the fight.
My UFC debut, I test positive like 10 days before the fight, and I didn't say anything.
Right.
I get short notice fight.
Yeah.
For staff?
8 days, right?
That's not an excuse.
There was no doubt in my mind that C19 would have destroyed his cardio and affected any training that he could possibly have squeezed in before stepping in against Zalal. It just spoke to the extreme self-belief that Topuria had in himself. El Matador had proven his worth in his debut, and well, this was just the beginning. Just 2 months later, Ilia would return to the octagon to face 2-time UFC vet Damon Jackson for a bout to take place on December 5th. Jackson was the former LFA featherweight champion and held a record of 17-3. He was a viable threat with a wicked ground game, owning many finishes via submission. It was now just an opportunity for Ilia to show what he was capable of with an actual full camp.
Which is good to see. He knows he wants to be able to come over here and be a star.
I mean, he's just unloading on Damon Jackson right now with all combinations. Those body shots have now officially now set up the headshot. It's all over.
Halfway through the first, Ilia would land a devastating uppercut, and as Jackson stumbled back, Ilia sensed blood in the water. It closed the distance, hammering Jackson with a relentless combination. Jackson waned, unable to recover, and then Ilia uncorked a fight-ending right hook that sent Jackson peacefully into the Shadow Realm. The way that he had dispatched Jackson with such violence had put fans on notice. They may call him El Matador, but to me, This fight made him out to be the bull. Full Camp Topuria was terrifying to say the least, and good luck to the next man who had the pleasure to stand across from him in the octagon. 7 months later, Topuria would be announced to be taking on TUF 22 winner Ryan Hall, riding his undefeated UFC
Ryan
streak
Hall in that
and
one,
impressive
definitely.
8-1 record. Ryan was more well known for his jiu-jitsu prowess though, a wizard on the mat. Ryan Hall was a submission artist to the highest order, crazy, unpredictable, and often utilizing unseen techniques that had left many top fighters puzzled in the middle of fights. But his game plan was no secret. In honor of Dark Souls, Hall would come out of the gate Imanari rolling toward his opponents with the hope of tangling them up and then submitting them from there. Hall had actually achieved viral success previous to his time in MMA when in 2011 he was captured in a very high-viewed video of him subduing a larger and aggressive man in a pizzeria, hailed by jiu-jitsu fanatics worldwide as a great use case. Ryan's deep knowledge of jiu-jitsu and his penchant for pulling off submissions from seemingly impossible positions had earned him a reputation as a puzzle, but Topuria was there not to...
I like that he put all that in there, because I just mentioned that I picked Ryan Hall in there. I used to train jiu-jitsu, and like, I definitely was a huge Ryan Hall fan. So I definitely picked Ryan Hall, and I'm glad he's putting all this background on just who Ryan Hall was coming into that fight, dude. Like, I think he was projected to eventually go on and fight for the belt with how good his jiu-jitsu was. And then Ilia was like, we're not playing this game.
Solve it, but instead destroy it.
Ryan Hall versus Ilia Topuria takes place this weekend on the prelims of UFC 264, Poirier versus McGregor 3, and I can't wait for this featherweight bout. Two streaking contenders, not quite ranked yet in the featherweight division. Ryan Hall was ranked, but because of his inactivity, he's now fallen out of those rankings. So the winner of this one, in my opinion, is definitely going to be ranked in the featherweight division, and I think the winner of this one is going to be a real problem for the rest of the featherweight division as well.
Of course, I'm going to try to be in stand-up all the time, but I have no problems to go with him in the ground, because if you see him, he has 4 fights inside the UFC.
He's
and
training with Kamaru.
He has just one submission against a BJ Penn who wasn't the same guy.
Excited. I think Ilia is a great opponent. He's very tough. You know, he brings a lot of skills to the table. And Topuria, I looked up who he was. I'd seen him fight prior. He's a very tough guy. I came here to fight the best. He represents a great challenge and a great opponent, and that's why I signed up immediately. I don't turn down fights. If you're good, if you're tough, I don't care who you are. I will fight you.
Like, look at this. Like, he just falls down. Oh, there it is. Nice hammer. Oh, big hammer fist by Topuria. There it is. Shot.
I was so sad. I didn't know who Ilia was.
The grappler who had baffled and bewildered fighters for years had met his match in the form of Ilia, a fighter whose raw violence had smashed through the fog of war of Ryan's elusive game, one brutal hammer fist at a time. In the midst of Joe Rogan's Glaze session on Hall, Topuria went fearlessly into the guard of one of the division's greatest submission threats and smashed his foe into unconsciousness. Ilia seemed oddly relaxed throughout the bout. Most men who had stepped into the cage with Ryan up until that point were extremely wary of his approach to a bout, but Ilia had had some special help that had made him unnaturally confident. His brother had been there every step of the way, guiding and molding Ilia into the perfect fighter.
Yo la suerte que tengo es de tenerlo porque él imita a cualquier oponente mío y mejor. Él me los hacía con una velocidad, pero 10 veces más que el mismo Ryan Hall. Estaba acostumbrado y había entrenado con un tío que era mejor que él haciéndolo, entonces era imposible que me ganara.
And now, with the victory cementing his place in the top 15, both Alex and Ilia had decided that Alex needed to restart his own career in mixed martial arts. Coming back to the fight game, Alex would make a statement.
Oh shit. Got the crucifix.
Those years working hard in the training rooms with his brother had turned him into a viable threat. Now the brothers would ascend through MMA together.
¿Le ha dicho que pare o le ha dicho que le está pegando detrás de la nuca? Ah, la palmeado.
Ilia had
Tapped
stamped
his
himself into
strikes.
the top 15 with a devastating performance, a well-deserved placement after dispatching such a threat. In just 3 fights, Ilia had fallen into the limelight, not only for fans, but now the top echelon of the division. It was no wonder that the UFC now wanted to test his mettle against those very men. 13th ranked undefeated Mosvar Evloev was the first to sign on the dotted line, but would quickly
That
be pulled
never
from the
happened.
bout
I was
and
like, holy
replaced by
shit.
Canadian standout Charles Jourdain. But the bad luck would continue. Topuria, just hours before weigh-ins, would be pulled from the card due
Damn,
to
I wish
medical
that
issues
happened.
relating to the weight cut. After this devastating news, Ilia was desperate to get back into the octagon, bugging
Good
the
fights.
matchmakers, but they told him, if you really want to fight, then your next opportunity might just have to be a weight class up, a tall order, and a massive risk.
Jai
But
Herbert.
2 months after his failed matchup, an opportunity presented itself. After Mike Davis pulled out of his matchup with Jai Herbert, due to the ridiculous amount of tax he would have to pay for fighting in the UK, I totally understand by the way because I live in this fucking country, Ilia stepped in on relatively short notice, up a weight class, to take on a surging contender of a Brit in Jai Herbert. A tall, rangy sniper of a fighter who had previously been the lightweight Cage Warriors world champion. Ilia was desperate to get in the cage again and perform, and if this was all that was on the table, then so be it. I think the only thing that he wasn't expecting was to be getting into 2 fights that week.
Oh, yeah. They recently greeted each other.
I can't believe he posted that video. He's made himself look so stupid. Saying,
Oh.
I warned you. Well, you're the one what got hand sanitized to bounce off your head, Odd. I never got nothing happened to me. You didn't land a single punch.
A little thing that many people didn't know about the beef between Paddy and Ilia is that it had all started a year previously when Paddy had made some pretty outlandish comments about Topuria's home
Insane.
country of Georgia.
I want to fight him because of my people, because of me, you know. I want to take his head off.
Considering Paddy's popularity at the time, after the scuffle, all fans' attention was pulled towards this hand sanitizer boy, this nobody, according to Paddy. Well, if you didn't know who he was, you were about to.
Yo siempre digo que en esos momentos antes de salir a pelear, es como una confesión que tienes contigo mismo. Empiezas a recordar todo el camino que has tenido que recorrer para llegar hasta el punto donde te encuentras en ese momento y si te mereces la victoria o no.
He's a 45-pounder, and he said, fuck it, I'll take a fight at 55. He gets head kicked in the first round.
Clean.
You're like, he's in real trouble. He got dropped. And he scrambled, got a hold of him.
Siempre, cada vez que llego en mis combates, es como que hice lo necesario para merecerme la victoria.
This is a beautiful deep dive. I'm like blown away right now. Like, wow.
I had a tough first round. I was surprised because he was really fast. But in the second round, I take his head off. That's all I remember.
Ilia's right hook sent Jai Herbert's head into orbit, something that one man would argue is impossible.
Me and my mama will tell you right now this earth is flat.
Flat earther Bryce Mitchell had entered the UFC 3 years previously after coming up short on the
his
Ultimate
mom
Fighter, but
sounds
despite this setback, he would
like
go
an
on to
interesting
out-grapple
woman.
and outwork his opponents, working his way up the featherweight rankings one.
Bryce Mitchell said his mom is also so his mom is the reason why he says the earth is flat, and his mom is the reason why he feels like people should not wear seatbelts when they drive.
Win at a time. By the time Ilia was poised to take on the big game hunting, conspiracy believing American, Bryce had become ranked 9th in the world and had amassed an impressive record of 15-0. For Ilia, it was finally his opportunity to break into the top 10 and cement his place as a true contender for the featherweight strap. The matchup was a battle over whose O had to go, a rarity in MMA, a crossroads for two fighters' legacy,
cool.
made all the more so important by the fact that these two men were battling in the top echelon of the division, and the stage for their violence to manifest was the opening of the main card of an important pay-per-view. It was the perfect setup for the winner to build much-needed hype. UFC
Champion Big
282
Hank.
would also see Ilia cross paths with an old enemy, and the press conference would be hijacked in the most entertaining way by their rivalry.
I aspire to be champion one day, so I need to do the same.
In mouth, please, loudly, loudly, shut up.
Oh my God.
Do it then, you little
You
fart.
have another question?
Do it. Do it then, you little. Do something, stand up.
All you do,
He is standing up.
You'll do nothing, you little fart. Go and sit back down. Sit back
One
down.
final question for Bryce Mitchell in the back. Do you think Ilia's making a mistake focusing on Paddy when he had his youth standing across him in the octagon?
Ilia said I'm a coward. Does a coward show up prepared to die? No. I'm no coward. I've already proved him wrong, and I'll prove him wrong again on Saturday.
It was time to fasten your seatbelts, or not.
Why
because
shake his
this
hand
fight
and
would
then start
unshackle a
talking
man
shit?
from his O, leaving the other to continue his
If it's like that,
undefeated
don't shake
legacy.
my hand.
This is a really, really good matchup. A very, very competitive matchup as well. And I'm leaning towards Ilia Topuria, but that doesn't mean I don't believe Bryce Mitchell has a chance, because this one is like you're leaning one way or the other. Who do you lean 51% in favor of, pretty much?
When it comes to his grappling, and I think ultimately that does favor Topuria. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, it is very close, but I'm ultimately going to have to go with Ilia Topuria, and I'm going to go by a third round TKO.
What I love so much about this fight is typically, you don't get two undefeated young guys that get this deep, and then you got to start.
Beautiful.
As both fighters crossed the threshold of the chain-linked fence, they did so with the full knowledge that one of them
Man's
would
got the
return with
glow.
the first taste of defeat in their mouth. The first exchange was a blistering three-piece combo from Topuria, and it set the mood for the entire fight. Ilia's power and speed and unrelenting forward pressure was just too much for Bryce to contend with. Every second that the clock ticked downward, his confidence would wane further. Wide-eyed and outclassed, Mitchell was ragdolled down to flat earth. There, the grappling specialist would be choked out, and with it, his undefeated
ragdolled
record
down
would
to
be
flat
etched out of
earth.
existence. Ilia's ascent continued, unobstructed, all the way into the top 10. El Matador's dominant win had also managed to eclipse Paddy's shine.
He says he's a sorcerer, they don't get knocked out.
The Scouser had won a controversial decision, and his denial of the
So
lacking
sorry.
performance had turned fans against him.
Probably the best I've ever looked in the UFC.
Their feud would erode with time. The spotlight was now positioned firmly on what was truly possible for the Georgian, now ranked inside of the top 10 and gaining momentum in fan favour. All he realistically needed was a top-ranked opponent and a flawless performance, and one man fit the bill. For the first time in years, Josh Emmett, with a bitter taste of defeat in his mouth after losing to Yair for the interim title just 4 months previously, decided to step into the octagon more than once in a calendar year. This was the perfect opponent for Ilia to stamp his place as the rightful next contender for the belt, and he was offered the perfect platform to conduct business, his first main event in the promotion. There was no doubt that Josh was the real hardest hitting 145er. The trail of unconscious bodies that he had left in his wake during his career was countless, but unfortunately, that meant his game was predictable, especially to a master tactician like Topuria. But with the great equalizer in Josh's hands, this was indeed an extremely dangerous fight for the Georgian. The UFC truly saw the writing on the wall. This was the final test. Could the rising star withstand the firepower of a seasoned vet? Could the old guard hold back the coming storm? With victory, Emmett would be put back in the win column, and it would be against a legitimate up-and-comer. And a win for Topuria, well, it would prove that he wasn't just a hype. He was inevitable.
When you look at him, where are his strengths and where are the holes where you can have success?
He's tough. That's why he's here. You know, he's in this position for a reason. He's really well-rounded, but you never know. It's like everyone's always the next champion, the next contender, the next big thing. This is going to be a tough test for him.
Just have to be worried about his hooks, nothing else. I couldn't care less about his wrestling or beating or ground game, even his boxing. So he had to be worried about my boxing, my wrestling, my grappling, about everything. So
you're an undefeated fighter. Is there any pressure on you?
I didn't feel any pressure for that. Anything. I don't feel anything. It's like a normal fight, you know, for me.
I don't
did
feel
this for my whole
anything.
life.
Tell
It's
him.
one more fight I'm gonna have tomorrow night, and I can't wait to get another victory.
Tienes que ser campeón.
Un campeón de
I think Ilia Topuria is going to win this fight. It's a dangerous fight, but at the end of the day, Josh Emmett is a 38-year-old featherweight who, to be honest, is maybe making a little bit too quick of a turnaround after going to war with Yair Rodriguez.
It's achieving a goal that I have since I was a kid. The belt is waiting for me. The fans gonna enjoy a lot the energy I'm gonna bring, the style I'm gonna bring, the fire I'm gonna bring inside that cage.
He looks so great in this fight.
Judges score the contest 50-44, 50-42, and 49-45. By unanimous decision.
Man, that dude was under attack. Emmett didn't know what to do.
The scorecard was the most dominant I think I'd ever seen. 50-42 is as severe as a beatdown as they come. The fourth round was scored by one judge as a 10-7, unimaginable rarity in MMA. But Ilia's masterful, relentless, and crushing performance, combined with Josh's truly impressive heart, made a fight of the night to be remembered for a lifetime for MMA fans. Josh's face had been mauled. Streams of scarlet gushed from the slices and cuts, the blood's path to dripping to the canvas, obstructed by bruises and welts. He had truly been outclassed by a man who walked away from the fight looking as fresh as he did entering the cage that night. 5 rounds they had fought, and now Ilia was every bit the more terrifying. He could knock you out, he could submit you, and now his cardio was without question. Even if you didn't succumb to his barrage, he wouldn't slow down. In fact, he would only grow more precise and more deadly as the rounds progressed.
I was faster than him, more powerful, everything. I was better than him tonight. That's why I beat him pretty easy.
Alex Volkanovski is obviously considered one of the best in the world. What do you do differently that means Alex will lose this fight to you?
There is nothing in this life that can break my mentality. I show it tonight that no one can match my level of skill inside the cage.
Dude,
I know that I can.
Is this title satire? Is he joking? I don't understand. I'm just being more and more inspired by Ilia as we go.
Anyone in this division.
He was, without a shadow of a doubt, the next in line. He had put on a masterpiece. Ilia called his shot on the microphone. He placed a rose in the center of the octagon, and the curtains closed to red. The statement was made, and now there was only one more. On October 9th, a bout between Ilia and Alexander Volkanovski was confirmed to take place in January of 2024, but just as quickly as it was put together, it would fall apart. A week before the announcement, Volk would be called to step up on just 10 days' notice to face Islam Makhachev for the lightweight throne once more, a call to action that more than likely should have been avoided. Whilst everyone wanted short notice Volk to be the new mythical fighter, it was sadly destined to fail.
Any fighter could weaponize pace and cardio without a training camp. It would be Volkanovski, but that does figure to be a tough proposition.
He would quickly find himself getting head kicked back down to featherweight by the formidable mountain dweller. And to be frank, it wasn't a surprise. In a game of inches, at such high talent, champions are the last people who should be putting their legacy on the line at such incredibly short notice. Champions are defined by their teams, by their intricate and precise preparations, and whilst you can forever carve out a section of history by dethroning a champion a weight class above on short notice, it does not mean that you should, nor have to. Nothing to lose is not applicable when a concussion or long-term injury is on the other end of it all. Volkanovski's openness after his defeat was the writing on the wall for a small group of fans.
I needed it. Again, obviously a lot of people will say it's for the money and all that, but it was much more than that. Like, you know what I mean? It is hard. Like, it really is hard for athletes. Sorry. I never thought I'd struggle with it, but I mean, like, for some reason, when I wasn't fighting or in camp, sorry.
Let's talk about what's next. I talk to the UFC, say keep me busy. It's just, I say that because, again, I'm in my prime. I need a fight. A lot of people go, he needs a break, I don't need a break.
Alexander's need and desire and desperation to be back in the cage as soon as possible was overzealous at best, and at worst, a miscalculated mistake. After a brutal knockout, there is no question that the head needs rest, but regardless, the UFC and Volk would only push back his fight with Topuria 1 month to February rather than January of 2024, giving him essentially 3 months to recover from the concussion. This was especially dangerous considering the man that he would be standing across from, brash and hungry foe with something to prove and the yearning to take everything away from Volk.
Trust me, I worked so hard for this one. I put my soul in this training camp. I worked and I don't plan to give an inch in that fight.
Despite Ilia having everything fans could dream of, from highlight knockouts and impressive performances, he still had his back against the wall going into the fight. Volk was the fan's sweetheart, and no opponent could derail that. The way that Ilia carried himself and talked all fight week
I hope
long.
he puts in there, because I remember I was watching Embedded, and like his family, his friends, his whole team, they're singing this Ilia, they're singing this, chanting this whole song, and it's like, dude, this dude he's got the glow.
It was met with resistance at every point by fans. People, for whatever reason, wanted to see Ilia lose. The long-reigning, charismatic, and consummate martial artist Volk had the entire sport behind him, and Ilia not only had to beat him, but turn the crowd to his favor. So the question was, could he do it?
You already know what's gonna happen. You just came ready for the retirement. I'm gonna take your head off. I'm gonna show you levels. I'm gonna walk the floor with you.
I'm gonna show you I'm the guy that's been on top of this division for so long. He doesn't stand a chance.
I'm gonna take a couple of pictures. Yeah, take pictures now because you won't have it after.
He took advantage of taking a photo with the belt, and
oh yeah, I forgot he did that.
Not until I teach you a lesson. Maybe one day you can be a great champion. I'm gonna kick your ass first. You'll learn your lesson. Maybe you can bounce back after that. But till then, get your hands off my belt.
La estrategia que voy a traer en la pelea, él no va a ser capaz de resolverlo.
Whenever you have a champion as dominant as Alexander Volkanovski, what you hope for is a challenger that's so imposing and so destructive that it makes you wonder whether or not he's going to be able to withstand this storm. That is Ilia Topuria.
That's a nice combination.
And good movement as well. He's not standing right in front of him. He's moving off the center line, cutting angles.
Yeah.
He knew what was coming. He felt my power.
So happy, Joe. I feel so happy right now. They're gonna tell you you can do it. They're gonna knock you down and doubt you.
Why you so sad?
But guess what?
That boy
the
had
only
the glow.
person you need to achieve anything in this life, it's yourself. Just trust yourself. Work tirelessly. Have faith, and everything is possible. Look at me. Look at me now.
Look at me now. Too soon?
Ilia would knock out Alexander the Great within 2 rounds. As he had predicted, he called his shot and he landed it. It was another somber moment for MMA fans. Suspicions realized Volk had returned to the cutthroat game too quickly, not giving his chin a chance to heal and recover. The knockout would continue a curse that has plagued the UFC since records began. Those in title fights, 35 years and older, almost destined to lose. Old man Volk had rather ironically materialized his own joke into reality. The darker truth, the porcelain of Volk's best years had begun to crack, And now that bitter downward trend of back and forth wins and losses has more than likely begun. Although we are yet to find out, we feel it in our bones. Ilia, on the other hand, had predicted his eventual crowning moment. Not only had he changed his Instagram bio weeks before stepping into the cage, attempting to manifest this reality, he was also confirmed Fight Week that he had a film crew following him around, creating a documentary entitled Road to Becoming Champion. Beyond that, he had also placed the belt around his waist during media day, spitting in the face of superstition. As far as Ilia was concerned, the fight was a mere formality. He had already won many months ago, and for what most mistook as arrogance, a thing that had soured many fans for whatever reason, wasn't. It was just confidence, unbreakable belief in himself to achieve the ultimate goal of any martial artist. By the time his Octagon interview had finished, I, for one,
he said at the face-off, when he faced off with Volk, he said, "I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to achieve my dreams." So like, he was taking the belt and doing all this crazy shit, but like, and embedded, he leaned in and was like, "I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to achieve my dreams." So I fucks with Ilia super hard.
Was sold. Ilia had made that impossible climb to the top with a story to sell it. Ilia had manifested years of hard work into a singular, spectacular, awe-inspiring moment, symbolically capped off with the 15th rose in the center of the octagon. The featherweight division now had a new man to rule, a new story cemented into greatness. He would post on Instagram following his victory with an inspiring message of overcoming doubt. Many will say you can't do it. They will knock you down and doubt you. But remember, the only one you need to achieve anything is yourself. Trust in yourself, have faith, and work tirelessly, because everything will come. It doesn't matter where you come from, if you know where you are going, and what's in front of you is much more important than what's behind you. Never, ever give up. Just stand up and fight.
Tabernacle.
Ilia talked the talk and walked the walk, humble and gracious. Volk had broken our hearts, but I'm sure that both of their journeys' paths will cross once again. But for Ilia, an old shadow had cast itself over the throne once more. A warrior was looking for his unprecedented third shot at undisputed UFC featherweight gold.
To be the best, you gotta beat the best, and the best is blessed. They can come after me, baby. Let's get it.
In Max's time away, since his last failed capture of the featherweight title, he had certainly not lost any fan favour. His first matchup that saw him fall back into the win column was against British prospect Arnold Allen, ending the Englishman's impressive 10-fight UFC winning streak. He would then follow it up with one of the more somber, yet still emphatic performances of the year with a devastating knockout of Chan Sung-jun, sending the Korean into retirement in his home country. The former two-time title challenger that had had the whole of South Korea at his back for years had finally been eroded down by this brutal game, and seeing the writing on the wall, decided to go out in one last blitz of glory. He left the octagon whilst the crowd screamed his walkout music, The Cranberries' Zombie. It was one of those times in the sport that had me sitting there with a pit in my stomach and tears in my eyes. Zombie had put on some of the greatest performances the division had ever seen, and here he was, leaving the sport
exciting
for good,
fights, not
fuel
greatest
for Holloway's
performances.
latest bid for championship gold. Max, with the win, had certainly proven that he was next in line for a title shot. That is, if Volk would lose the title, of course. And with his pending matchup against Topuria, Holloway would have to go run a side quest to keep himself busy. That would come in the form of an extremely exciting matchup against Justin Gaethje at UFC 300, about to take place at lightweight. They would be duking it out for the symbolic BMF title. These two men were certainly deserving of a chance to claim that title. With the moniker of the baddest motherfucker on the line, Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje clobbered each other for 5 rounds, and at 4 in the morning, hailing from the land of England, I was drifting slowly in and out of consciousness during the 4th and 5th. By some miracle of fate, I had managed to pin my eyelids open with just 20 seconds to go in the 5th. My brother, snoring next to me, he had succumbed to the torture that is staying up for a UFC event this side of the globe. Max, the man who was up on the scorecards, closed to the center of the octagon and pointed down at the canvas. It was happening. They were about to do the most BMF thing imaginable. Both men traded in the waning moments of the fight of the night bout, caution to the wind, and then just like that,
Got Dreekis over there with Sean.
In all my years of watching this sport had unfolded before my very eyes. A photo captured the moment. A photo that encapsulated everything that this sport stands for. The thrill and the agony. The winner and the loser. The expulsion of emotion as the realization that victory has finally been achieved after weeks and months of preparation, careful game planning and visualization, the understanding that perhaps this very moment will be remembered with reverence for years, and it was wrought onto the face of Holloway. It was, and is still, perhaps the greatest photo I'd ever seen. Ilia was in the crowd at that moment, and he looked as bewildered and terrified as all of us. He knew at that moment he was going to be taking on this savage. Fate was sealed. On July 29th, it was announced that Ilia's next title defense against Max was scheduled to take place at UFC 308 in late October of 2024. For Max, it was more than likely his last chance of claiming the featherweight belt, and any future shots at a belt would have to take place in the division above, a place where he was conveniently ranked also. For Ilia, Max just served as another legend to add to his legacy. Max famously had a chin of granite, none so more obvious than going
Max
5
still
rounds
ranked
with
at
one of the hardest
lightweight?
punchers in the UFC, Justin Gaethje. So the fight promised to challenge Ilia in ways that we hadn't seen before. Max wasn't just going to stand there and brawl like Emmett. This fight was destined to be a 5-round technical battle, and the question was this something that the newly minted champion could handle?
People keep saying that this new era is about to start and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Ilia Topuria is like 29, I think, I believe. Just because I've been around longer than him doesn't mean I'm an old guy. So
Max is still number 4.
I just can't wait, you know. The last time I checked, I was younger than Ilia and I had title defenses. So
I have all the respect for him. He called me a fan. Yeah, I followed his career. I've been a fan. How can you not be a fan of Max Holloway, right? So he's been a great example for me, but now it's my time to be that example for the new generation.
You stay in the middle. If not, run away. I will cut you anyways. I will cut you.
We're days away.
Take you
days away.
Trust me.
We are days away.
Trust me. You're gonna wake up from a long sleep.
He cracked him again! Leave him alone now! He dropped him bad! Holloway's out! No!
In what was a moment that many felt to be impossible, the Hawaiian warrior was put unconscious by an
Head on over to Calf Kick Sports. You'll see my official prediction that Ilia was going to knock Max Holloway unconscious. Go check it out.
Godly, unending blitz by the Georgian. Ilia smelled blood in the water after rocking Holloway, and the subsequent barrage was ceaseless until the ruby in his belt was wrought with blood on the canvas. In shades of his previous performance, many fans were heartbroken to see their boy get laid to rest. But with the win, Topuria had silenced any last doubts that existed. He placed a rose in the center of the octagon, a symbol that his reign was unfaltering and his continued ascent unstoppable. This dream perhaps would have never been realized without the help and selfless dedication of his brother, who, as of this day, is in the UFC himself. Now with a record of 5-1, we can sit back and enjoy the rise of yet another Topuria. Who knows, maybe he might make his way into the bantamweight history books himself. From the moment Ilia Topuria set foot in the UFC, his trajectory was none so clearer. It was to be violent, chaotic, and relentless. The Georgian-born, Spanish-raised wrecking ball tore through the featherweight ranks with a mix of what only can be described as brutal precision and an unshakable self-agency. Reality has done little to challenge that belief. His early fights were the foundations of which he built his contention to the belt. Yusuf Zalal, Damon Jackson, Ryan Hall, Jai Herbert, each of them presented different threats, unique puzzles, and each of them were razed to ash and dust. A rose lays with them now. Then came those ranked in the top echelon of the division, the true tests. Bryce wilted under the pressure. Josh swang at a spectre who simply was not there.
here, my
just
guy?
like that, a rose was laid with them also. Volk and Holloway, the true, irreproachable manifestations of what it—
all I've gotten is inspired by now, like right now. So like, what is the switch? Why is this the title? Why is the title is why Ilia Topuria is fucked? So like,
means to not only be a champion of the sport, but to be a champion of the people also. Their skills, unrivaled. Their era-defining domination, undeniable. And yet, a rose was laid for them also. In back-to-back fights, Ilia had, in equal parts, broken our very hearts, and yet impressed us. Two sides of this most savage of coins that defines this sport. The thrill comes, and yet the agony surely follows. In a lot of ways, Topuria has fulfilled that space that Conor left in the division, the extreme confidence, the self-fulfilling prophecy realized on the grandest of stages. And unlike McGregor, who became materialistically distracted and subsequently tainted his legacy every step of the way, Ilia remained true to himself, grateful for what the universe had provided him, and has now become a symbol for what unwavering belief in yourself can provide.
Once again, I proved to myself that the manifestation, and if you are able to visualize the things and work really hard for them, you can bring it to reality without any doubt.
And now, in a twist that no one saw coming, Ilia continues the symmetry with McGregor by leaving the featherweight division behind. On February 20th, 2025, Dana White took to Instagram Live to begrudgingly announce, amongst a slew of exciting matchups, that Ilia had vacated the featherweight title in pursuit of becoming a double champion in a heavier division. According to the UFC president, Ilia wants to leave the weight cuts in the past and feels that he has the ability to dismantle the current pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Islam Makhachev. Ilia's only statement since the news is simply, "Not like us." I think it takes a lot of courage and self-belief to willingly sacrifice the thing that not only legitimizes you as an athlete, but brings in that paycheck. Ilia dropped the title regardless. How many men would do that? And at the age of only 28, Ilia has already defined his place in the sport, but this move, well, it's just completely badass. And if he pulls it off, and if he becomes champion, dare I say it, I think that he surpasses Conor McGregor in terms of greatness. In turn, Volkanovski was awarded another chance at claiming the featherweight throne. A matchup with Diego Lopez was announced in the same brief. They headline UFC 314, and now the fighting world anxiously awaits to see if Volk can break that curse and rule once more, or if indeed a new man can start his own reign and his own story. There are those who fight with skill, there are those who fight with heart, and then there are those who fight with something greater altogether. It is a force that cannot be measured,
the glow.
It cannot be trained, and it cannot be broken. A belief so strong that the world itself bends to its will. Before he had a belt, before the world knew his name, he carried the weight of an impossible dream, one not lightly dreamt. And what is faith, if not the ability to see the unseen? He now does not just wear the glimmering gold of a championship belt, he also wears his purpose for all to see. He fights not just for himself, but for those who need to see that faith is power, that words shape reality, that the moment you decide your destiny is the moment that the conspiracy of the universe begins, and through him, he calls others to believe too, because if him, then surely you. He now shouts forth into the void, beckoning new challengers to heed his call to violence, and that bellow is carried by the echoes of the four kings who fell before him. El Matador's fire burns bright now. One day too, it will fade, but not before birthing a spark for another.
All right. I think that was sarcastic. Unless I missed something in there. That was all great. It was all great things. I think the only problem he's saying here is potentially that, you know, he didn't get a guaranteed fight. But if anything, no, I think this was sarcastic. It was a great documentary. Great way to get me in there to the door. Yeah, head on over to Mixed Martial Academy. Give them a like, give them a subscribe for that amazing work there. They got a lot of documentaries. Let's just go look at their page here, man. Yeah, look at this. why Alex Pereira was gifted his UFC championship. Definitely got to check that one out. No more Shama. Got to check that one out. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys for being here. If you're here for this whole video, let me know. Sorry I moved the camera angles around, but it'll be something like this going forward. But thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you guys when I see you.
I'm more Francis Ngannou. I be the biggest problem out of any nigga I know. A little old school like some 45 vinyls. You niggas old duels, what that do to the wino? I do it the commercial way, pay without the splits.